Uniquely prestigious, proven, and powerful. This is the World Trade Centers Association, the most trusted brand in global commerce.
The World Trade Center has been a powerful differentiator here in Savannah. It's about credibility. It's about who you're connected to. We're recognized around the world. That's a game changer for us.
World Trade Centers in more than 300 cities elevate and accelerate international business success, displaying the instantly recognizable WTC brand. These iconic buildings are both the literal and figurative foundation of immediate opportunities for companies, cities, and entire regions.
The Paris Region Chamber of Commerce and Industry is the largest in Europe. WTC Paris gives us a vibrant platform to position and grow our region's booming trade economy.
Every day, the worldwide WTCA network provides critical connections to communities across the globe.
At United Nations University in Dresden, we focus on the integrated management of environmental resources. We are proud of our highly diverse team comprising 38 nationalities and share the idea of an international ecosystem with the World Trade Center Association.
Somos muito gratos ao World Trade Center de Joinville, ao WTC, que traz para nós uma marca mundial e de grande relevância em conexões com empreendedores e com outros espaços no mundo.
Believe in the brand and reap the results.
People wonder why Savannah is doing so well. It's because when you look at what we're doing, we're playing with big companies, we're playing with big cities, we're playing with large countries. The numbers speak for themselves, from Savannah to the world.
World-renowned, world-class. There is only one World Trade Center per city. It could be, it should be, yours.
We may not have all the answers, but at the World Trade Centers Association, we think that Africa will be a big part of the future.
It's a bright and beautiful morning in Accra, Ghana, the center of the earth, from where I say good morning to you all and welcome to the 53rd General Assembly of the World Trade Centers Association, convened here by the World Trade Center Accra, together with their partners.
Someone said something about why one should never come to Africa, and I want to share that with you. You should never go to Africa because it's not safe. Africa might steal your heart. You might never want to return home. You might be changed forever. You might get kidnapped by Africa. It will capture you and never let you go. But let me warn you that Africa can be addictive.
blessings of God Almighty.
Ghana is experiencing a digital revolution, following government's drive to ensure seamless business connectivity. This new age of interconnectedness reflects on government's approach in managing the public sector through series of digital reforms, as well as the private sector's tech response to solving problems. Ghana enjoys a high degree of connectivity with one of the highest mobile network operator voice penetration rates in sub-Saharan Africa at 131.84% and data penetration at 85.99%. It has been ranked number 1 in Africa as the country with the fastest internet broadband speed per the Speedtex Global Index, indicative of the exciting prospects in the sector. The expansion of internet networks and smartphone ownership has supported a rapid growth of digital services in business, as seen particularly in the rise of mobile money. Consequently, the ripple effect of the increase in mobile data penetration and mobile money platforms is seen in the transformation of the Ghanaian economy, which has boosted financial inclusion and created off-avenues for companies to market their products. The government regards the ICT industry as a key engine of economic development, and it is committed to maximizing its potential through provision of ICT infrastructure and incubator programs to support startups. Come grow in Ghana and grow with Ghana. Ghana's agro-industry prospects continues on a positive path, being supported by the abundance in natural resources spanning across diverse plant, animal and marine life. About 57% of Ghana's total land area is classified as agricultural land area, laying grounds for viable micro and macro agribusiness ventures. Currently, the West African country is the world's second largest producer of cocoa, churning out an average of 850,000 tons of beans annually and generating 3 billion in foreign exchange yearly. The agricultural sector is supported by strong policies. Hence, amid the COVID-19 pandemic, it still recorded an average growth of 4.5% in 2020, driven by the crops, fishing and livestock subsectors. In ensuring its rapid growth, the government has resorted to an aggressive industrialization and value addition drive, prompting and promotion of exports, especially of value-added agricultural products. Government also rolled out incentives for manufacturing businesses in sectors such as agro-processing, including tax exemptions over the first 5 to 10 years. Some initiatives implemented by the government to bolster growth in the sector included the Planting for Food and Jobs, agric mechanization, 0% tax on importation of agric inputs, and an audacious One District, One Factory program which has provided support for several agro-processing companies. Also, the increased investment in agricultural sector as part of Investing for Food and Jobs program is projected to ensure consistent growth in staple crop production, which will strengthen food security and provide immense investment opportunities. With the diversity in commodities being produced to feed factories, a vibrant labor force, a ready market, coupled with incentivizing government policies, there is no doubt that the sector has become an exciting preserve to create wealth and foster national development. Come grow in Ghana and grow with Ghana. Ghana is one of the world's prolific mineral sites. It ranks first in Africa for gold mining and 7th globally. Southern Ghana is regarded as one of the richest gold discovery zones in the world, offering explorers a rich bed for gold extraction. Large deposits of aluminium, diamond and manganese are also extracted in Ghana. AngloGold Ashanti, Newmont Ghana, Goldfields Ghana, Chirano Gold Mines and Golden Star are among the top gold mining companies that continue to invest in Ghana. However, several other mining companies continue to ramp up in terms of industry developments and contributions. The nation is set to become the first West African lithium producer, with an estimated production of 2 million tons per annum and projected revenues exceeding $1.55 billion. Meanwhile, through the Ghana Integrated Aluminium Development Corporation, Ghana is anticipated to expand its aluminium production operations. This will entail increasing current bauxite mining and aluminium smelting activities, as well as adding alumina refining to the country. In order to continue profiting from this natural richness, the government will continue to expand its refining capacity as production grows. The mining industry is replete with investment opportunities and vast potential for expansion and development. Come grow in Ghana and grow with Ghana.
We are a free zone enterprise located in Oshie, in Accra, South Municipal Assembly. And we are into manufacturing of household products like air fresheners, body perfumes, body splash, glass cleaners, liquid soaps, detergents, etc., etc. Yeah, Amanes Company Limited was incorporated in 2017. Currently, we have about 11 product line. If we are talking about air fresheners, as at now, I can boldly say that we have taken about 70% market share of air freshener in Ghana here. I mobilize a lot of sales personnel. So all over the country, we were just moving from door to door, retail outlets. From that time, the product was able to gain recognition in the markets. Now we import to about 8 countries. We have Togo, Benin, Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Guinea-Conakry. I can say about 2.5 million population along the ECOWAS. They are patronizing our products. Amanes will take full advantage of the AfTA. And our customers also over there, is their wish that we'll gain the AfTA so that they can also clear their goods without much import duties. And that will make the product competitive at their location.
Africa is a continent open to possibility, which comes to life when those with ambition and courage find the right partner, a partner with the tenacity to stand by them and light up a continent. With the experience and unique insights to go beyond limits, Absa Group Limited is that partner. We are synonymous with stability, transparency, and innovative thinking in financial services based on a legacy of 100 years of seamless execution across Africa. Our new brand and growth strategy define how we are shaping our destiny as a proudly African bank, inspired by Africanacity. This is the distinctly African ability to always find ways to get things done. Africanacity is what drives us, what sets the tone for our business, and echoes across our African footprint. Our corporate and investment banking business challenges limits. We close distances, connecting people to opportunities across borders, languages, and cultures. With global connectivity and local differentiation, we operate at the core of your strategy. Our understanding of each unique environment across regulatory and market practices results in a differentiated service and experience for our broad range of clients. Backed by insights into key sectors, we turn risks into opportunities, supported by a unique set of solutions that work across your full value chain. Our clients experience a seamless partnership across Africa, with aligned delivery positioning you for success across operating environments. Because African ingenuity and tenacity go beyond limits, so do we. Our world-class service is based on skills and expertise that have been developed to put our clients first, proven by numerous high-profile deals and coveted international awards.
Embark on a journey to India, the land of the future. Discover for yourself why India has emerged as a global destination for investment, business and trade. Engage and interact with leaders and innovators from across sectors who make the city an ever-evolving hub. Seize the moment to invest in a pulsating, growing economy backed by a young, skilled workforce. Welcome to Bengaluru, in the southern Indian state of Karnataka. This is where heritage and tradition meet innovation and technology. With worldwide connectivity, lush gardens, a vibrant culture and cosmopolitan vibe, Bengaluru is not just a destination for work, but also a place to live, play and thrive. India's Garden City and Silicon Valley welcomes you to WTCA 54th General Assembly 2024. Experience unmatched hospitality, indulge in ultimate comfort and luxury. Rest assured of your safety. Immerse yourself in nature and beauty. Soak in the myriad flavors of India and Karnataka. And prepare for an adventure and opportunity that promises to be epic. We look forward to welcoming you to India and to our city of Bengaluru for the WTCA 54th General Assembly in 2024.
Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests from around the world, on behalf of World Trade Center Accra, it is my honor and pleasure to welcome you all to this webinar on Thriving in Africa, Key Insights for Foreign Investors. Over the years, a lot has been said about Africa's potential and the great paradox that is our continent, that with all the resource endowments, including the world's most youthful population, Africa accounts for less than 3% of global GDP and trade. Yet it is becoming obvious in recent times that Africa is undergoing a significant repositioning towards finally realizing some of that potential. We are key engineers of economic growth and sustainable development across the African continent, and we are happy to be partnering with like-minded organizations today to execute this webinar. I am profoundly delighted to announce that this webinar is also a testament to the collaborative spirit that defines our continent. We are joined by esteemed speakers and partners, including the Africa Continental Free Trade Area Agreement and a coalition of eminent business advisory and law firms from across the continent, who I am happy you will meet later. We are also joined by an audience that is truly global, with representatives from every continent on Earth, a demonstration of the global nature of our World Trade Center Association network. Africa, with its rich tapestry of cultures, abundant resources, and resilient people, holds immense promise for foreign investors. Today, we will embark on a journey to explore that potential, and we will delve into key sectors that beckon investors, examine the more opportunities available on the African continent due to the Africa Continental Free Trade Area Agreement, and we will seek to decipher the legal and regulatory frameworks and unravel the nuances of the African consumer market. Our aim is not merely to disseminate knowledge, but to empower you with actionable insights that will serve as a guide for your investment decisions. Whatever your objectives are in Africa, I can assure you that there's adequate capacity in the plenary body today to ensure that you attain those objectives. As we navigate through the sessions, I encourage each one of us to engage actively, ask questions in the chat box or in the Q&A box, share your thoughts, and we will ensure that your concerns are addressed. This webinar is not just a platform for learning, but also a platform for dialogue and exchange of ideas. So your active participation will enrich our discussions and foster a deeper understanding of the opportunities that lie within the African continent. We also hope that this webinar will be an important networking platform. The speakers will be available for further interactions beyond the program, and our team at WTC Accra would be delighted to provide further clarification, guidance, and assistance. The World Trade Center Accra is a member of the global network of more than 300 World Trade Centers around the world in over 100 countries, and we're headquartered in New York, with the singular objective of promoting prosperity through trade. Over the years, World Trade Center Accra has been a landing pad for foreign companies seeking to invest in Africa and has been a gateway to opportunities globally for local firms. And we're happy to welcome you to this webinar. I would like, at this point, to extend my deepest gratitude to our esteemed partners and speakers and participants. Now, let's get the ball rolling. Our first presentation will be by Her Excellency, Madam Cynthia Nyaksingbe Sonam, who is a senior advisor to His Excellency, the Secretary General of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area Agreement. Madam Cynthia is the head of private sector engagements at the AfCFTA Secretariat. Before joining the Secretariat in February 2022, she served in the Office of the Presidency of the Republic of Togo in charge of missions. Then she went on to become the Secretary General of the Togo Invest Corporation, which was the first investment holding company established by the government of Togo to lead the development of strategic projects. Throughout her professional career, she has been exposed and gained extensive experience in areas such as investment promotion and facilitation, corporate governance, project finance, public-private partnerships, as well as infrastructure planning and development across various sectors. She sits on the board of a few enterprises in Togo, including IPP Kekeli Efficient Power and the national agency in charge of the promotion and development of agro-industrial parks. Most importantly, she's a mother of two and an entrepreneur, and I am happy that one of the companies on whose board she sits on has the name Kekeli in it, because my son is called Kekeli. So already I see that that we have something very important in common in our family ties. Madam Cynthia, I would like to invite you now to speak, after which we will receive a brief address from Mr. Milan Ramji, who is the director of the WTCA in charge of Africa and the Middle East. Madam Cynthia, please take over.
Thank you very much, Edem. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished participants. It's really a pleasure to be here with you today. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the WTC for inviting us to participate in this very important engagement, and also to commend the organizers, the partners, for pulling this thing together. So as I was presented, I am Madam Cynthia Simbe-Sonam, one of the senior advisors at the AfCFTA Secretariat. And as we talk about doing business on the continent, we cannot leave behind the AfCFTA, the African Free Trade Continental Agreement, because today this is the project of the African Union in terms of integrating, economically speaking, the African continent. So we have embarked on this project. I hope that you can see my slides, that everything is clear. Okay. So we have embarked on this project to integrate our continents. And I hope that through my presentation, I will be able to address these, I would say, three objectives. The first one is really to give you a basic understanding of what the AfCFTA is and how it will change the architecture of trade and investment on the continent. How it is put together as a trade pact. I would like also to be able to allow you to better understand how the AfCFTA will impact the current rules and regulations of doing business, and also to get a basic understanding of the new tools that the AfCFTA is introducing, including an electronic tariff book, dispute settlement system, and a payment and settlement systems. So those tools and instruments that we have put in place are really there to operationalize the AfCFTA, so that the private sector, who is really the engine of the African economy, can really take advantage of the AfCFTA, participate in it, so that we can realize the objectives of the African Continental Free Trade Area. So in a nutshell, and as an introduction, as I say, it is one of the flagship projects of the African Union, of Agenda 2063. And really what we are trying to do is use it as a tool to industrialize our continents. We want to make sure that we add more value and that we actually develop our industrial capacity, that we produce what we consume and we consume what we produce, and increase intra-Africa trade through that single market that we want to create for goods and services. It was signed, the agreement itself was signed in March 2018, exactly on the 21st of March 2018, and it entered into force in May 2019. And theoretically speaking, the start of trade under AfCFTA the beginning of trade under AfCFTA was January 2021. I will come back to it later so that you understand why I say this was the dates that where we are supposed to be, to be trading on the continent using the rules and the rules and the regulations of the AfCFTA, or the rules of origins, and and benefiting from the tariffs that the AfCFTA is providing. So today, when we look at the AfCFTA, we are talking about, the continent itself is 55 countries. We are looking at a population of 1.3 billion, and we are talking about a GDP of $3.4 trillion US. So it is a considerable market. And if we manage to really implement the AfCFTA as we are supposed to do, actually some of the institutions such as the World Bank and UNECA do projects that, in terms of the benefits, we will be able to increase income by $450 billion in Africa. We will be able to lift 50 million people out of extreme poverty by 2035. We will be able to expand incomes by 570 billion and increase intra-Africa trade by 19%. And UNECA also estimate that effective implementation of the AfCFTA has the potential to increase intra-Africa trades by up to 34% by 2045. So these are very important figures, which shows the potential that the AfCFTA has, and the necessity to really, work towards creating that single market by breaking down the barriers. And there we are talking about the barriers in terms of non-tariff barriers, but also tariff barriers. In terms of the signings and ratifications, so as of today, out of the 55 countries that we have, 54 have signed the agreement, and 47 countries today have ratified the agreement. The countries that are left to ratify are in West Africa, we've got Liberia and Benin. They have not yet ratified. In East Africa, Somalia. In North Africa, we have Libya, Sudan, South Sudan. And in Southern Africa, we have Madagascar. But some of these countries that are actually listed there are now actively working towards that ratification, especially Madagascar. So we're hoping that by the end of the year, we will get to 48 or maybe 49 ratifications. So which means that today, the AfCFTA agreement, the legal structure that we have, really applies to those countries that have ratified, which are now state parties to the AfCFTA agreement. So how is the AfCFTA implemented? So we have separated, or let's say, the agenda of implementation is really into two phases. The first phase covered trade in goods, trade in services, dispute settlement mechanism, and customs and trade facilitations. And it's the annexes that are also related to these protocols. So that phase is, I would say, pretty much concluded. And the second phase now is looking at investment protection. So we have a protocol on investment that has been adopted recently. There is also a protocol on intellectual property rights and a protocol on competition policy. And the two left protocols that we are now negotiating between the member states and which we hope will be adopted at the next AU Heads of State Assembly in February are the protocol in digital trade and women and youth in trade. So when you look at these different protocols, you can see that the AfCFTA is really ambitious because it really covers all the sectors and activities that really come into play when we are talking about trade and investment and FDIs in general. So we have these protocols that are being negotiated by the member states. And we hope that by the time we finish, now that we have only two protocols left, we are really also pushing for implementation. And when we're talking about implementation, that's where the private sector come into play. In terms of the trade in goods, what is very important to note is that today, as of today, we have 88.3% of tariff lines on rules of origins that have been adopted. So if you consider the fact that on the African continent, we have more than 5,000 products that are traded, 88.3% have agreed rules of origins. It means the countries that have ratified the agreement and are now state party to the AfCFTA will apply the same rules of origins for each tariff lines that have, which are in the books, in the HS code systems, which is really important because we are not going, we are not living in this fragmented time where maybe one product will have a rule of origin in one country, one particular country. When you want to export to another country, you have to adhere to different rules of origins. Today, you produce a bottle of water in Ghana, you want to export it to Kenya or Uganda or South Africa, it's the same rules of origins that will apply, one single rule book. The only sectors that have not yet where we have not yet finished the rules of origins and agree on the rules of origins are the textile and clothing and the automotive sectors. These are the only two sectors that are remaining, and we are hopeful that by the end of the year or early next year, the member states will also agree on the rules of origins in regards to these two sectors. The annexes on non-tariff barriers, and when we are talking about non-tariff barriers, we are talking about non-tariff measures such as standards, sanitary and phytosanitary and technical barriers to trade. We have the customs and border management annex, the trade facilitation and transit arrangements that are complete. So those annexes are complete, have been adopted by the member states, and the Secretariat is actively working on them to really now start implementing what has been adopted by the heads of state. Now, we understand that sometimes what we sign is beautiful, but on the ground, the private sector face different challenges. But the tools are there, and we will be looking at them as we move on during this presentation. It's important to note that when we are talking about the non-tariff barriers, for instance, today we have a portal where any private sector, any exporter or importer that actually suffers or encounters some issues at the borders in terms of non-tariff barriers can actually report. The portal is there for reporting and monitoring the cumbersome, trade barriers that we see on the ground, and this is a tool that the private sector is really urged to use and utilize, so that we make sure that progressively we eliminate those barriers. In terms of trade and services, the member states are still submitting their schedule of their commitments. The sectors that we are focusing on in the first phase are the financial sector, the transport sector, the communication, tourism, and business. And as I say, negotiations are underway for the development of regulatory framework that member states now will use to really underpin how they implement those offers on the ground. So we hope that by the end of, next year, we will be able to finalize that, but you will understand that trade in service is a little bit more complicated than trade in goods, but progress is happening also on that particular aspect. Now, usually when we talk about the AfCFTA, one question that comes up is, what about the regional economic communities? So I thought it would be important to put this slide to explain that the African Union really recognized that the AfCFTA is building upon the acquis of the regional economic communities and the trade agreements and preferential agreement that they have already in place between them, between those, the members of these regional economic communities. So they will continue, members pertaining to a particular REC like ECOWAS, SACU, EAC, or SADC, etc., COMESA, they will continue to engage and trade between them, among themselves using their preferential framework. But where the AfCFTA really comes to play is when we are trading across RECs. So when a trader, for instance, is moving goods from ECOWAS to an EAC country or vice versa, there obviously the AfCFTA regimes makes absolute sense. In terms of the operationalization of the AfCFTA and the instrument and tools that we have to really support private sector participation, I would say the first tool that we have put in place, or framework that we have, is what we call the AfCFTA Private Sector Engagement Strategy, which has identified 4 priority value chains. These are agriculture and agro-processing, automotive, pharmaceuticals, transport, and logistics. Again, here we are not excluding other sectors, but it's just in terms of implementation and the studies that we have conducted, and the benefits that was, let's say, identified in terms of increase of intra-Africa trade, increase of capacity, production capacity that we already have on the ground, in terms of creation of employment, inclusiveness of the jobs that will be created. It was, the study showed that if we focus on these 4 sectors for the next 5 to 10 years, we will be able to generate maximum impact. As I said, in terms of job creation, in terms of inclusivity of those jobs, in terms of the increase of intra-Africa trade, and in terms of the value that we will generate on the continent. When we look at the automotive sector, and here, ladies and gentlemen, there are so much opportunities that are there for our MSMEs, for our SMEs. We are doing at the moment a mapping to understand how these sectors can be, or let's say how the continents can develop those regional value chains based on the comparative advantages of the state parties when we're looking at the automotive sectors, for instance, we are not looking just at the assembling part of the automotive of that particular industry, but we are also looking at the components part when we are talking about leather seats, for instance, rubber for the tires, etc. How do we make sure that we actually come up with a truly regional and continental value chain, leveraging on the forces and the comparative advantages of our countries to really develop these sectors? That is what we are trying to do, and we are pushing also, working with the private sector and also the industry players to invest on the continent, but also to ensure that we develop the right capacity with regards to our SMEs and MSMEs so that they can integrate successfully those value chains. The automotive sector has actually, with AfCFTA, we have been able to put in place a facility of $1 billion to assist countries that will be, that will want to actually position themselves in that particular sector. So this is a facility that is available at the level of AfCFTA, and that can be, as I said, used by the private sector. The funding will also be used for ensuring access to consumer finance as part of the creation of demand and associated insurance products. We have also AfCFTA that has established what we call FEDA, which is a Fund for Export Development in Africa, to support intra-African trade growth, value-added export development, and industrialization. Other operational tools that we have on the website of the AfCFTA what we call the AfCFTA e-tariff book. It's a digital platform which contains the tariff schedules and applicable tariff rates for all the AfCFTA state parties, and any business owner today can go onto the website as it shows on the slides and actually identify goods that they would like to export to a particular country, and what are the tariffs that applies to that particular specific goods. The AfCFTA Rules of Origin Manual is also available online. It's a guidebook providing detailed information on how to determine the origin status of goods traded between state parties. We have what we call the mechanism for reporting, monitoring, and eliminating of non-tariff barriers. I already spoke about it. The Pan-African Payment and Settlement System also is another tool that will deepen economic integration on the continent, because it will allow us to trade seamlessly using our local currency. So it's a platform that has been developed by AfCFTA. And today we have many central banks, commercial banks that are all connected to the Pan-African and Payment Settlement System to allow our traders, importers, exporters to be able to settle their payment using in real time at a very low cost using our local currency. And it's all live, and businesses are actually utilizing these tools as we are speaking. The AfCFTA Hub is also another tool that we have developed in collaboration with our partners, Afro Champions, a unified electronic gateway connecting e-government portals, business and consumer apps, and supranational platforms into one continental digital ecosystem, again, so that our SMEs can trade seamlessly using a portal which is a one-stop shop where you have not just the commercial actors, but also the regulators on the linked to that particular platform. A very important initiative that we have going on at the moment is called the Guided Trade Initiative. The Guided Trade Initiative was launched last year because at the Secretariat, we realized that we have to push a little bit our member states or our state parties to operationalize the AfCFTA on the ground. So the relevant instruments for trade under the AfCFTA have been adopted by the member states, but each member states, for the private sector to benefit when they trade across border, the country has to actually domesticate those instruments. So we are talking about the schedule of tariff concessions, for instance, the certificate of origin, all this documentation needs to be domesticated at the national level. So what we have decided to do last year is to initiate what we called the Guided Trade Initiative, which was a pilot test to show that the AfCFTA can actually work. So we had 8 countries, Cameroon, Egypt, Ghana, Kenya, Mauritius, Rwanda, Tanzania, and Tunisia, that came together, made sure that they comply with the, as I told you earlier, the domestication of the various instruments. We have identified importers and exporters in each country, in each of those 8 countries, and we actually got the AfCFTA, trade to happen under the AfCFTA, with those importers and exporters benefiting from the preferential tariffs as per the offers by their countries. It is important to note that when we talk about the liberalization of goods, it's a progressive liberalization. So the aim is to reach 2035, where we can actually trade 90% of our goods at 0%. So it is a progressive dismantling of the tariffs. And today, if actually we consider the fact that trade has officially started in 2021, when we actually did the Guided Trade Initiative, some of the businesses that participated in that Guided Trade Initiative benefited up to 30% of a reduction in their custom tariffs that they had to pay because of the progressive dismantling of or reduction of the tariffs as per the offers by the country, as I mentioned. So each year, every country will see their custom duties reducing, as I say, with the aim of reaching 0% for 90% of our goods and of our goods traded at 0% by 2035. So these are the products, some of the products that were traded. And today we are expanding the Guided Trade Initiative. We are sitting at 30 countries that are now participating. We are working actively with those 30 countries to make sure that they comply, that they domesticate the documents and the instrument that needs to be domesticated for their businesses to be able to trade under the AfCFTA. So in East Africa, we have Uganda, Tanzania, Burundi, Malawi that is joining. West Africa, we have Cote d'Ivoire, Nigeria, Senegal. Southern Africa, we have we have Angola, Botswana, Namibia, South Africa. So all the big countries are now participating, joining the Guided Trade Initiative, which means that countries, by next year, when we will do the second Guided Trade Initiative, there will be more participation in terms of companies. There will be more participation in terms of countries. There will be more participation in terms of products traded across these AfCFTA member countries. Another tool is what we call the AfCFTA Adjustment Fund Facility. The AfCFTA Adjustment Funds Facility has been also put in place together with Afreximbank to be able to assist countries that will suffer some losses when they open up their borders. So these funds are there to, again, strengthen the productive capacities of some of the countries in terms of the sectors that will be maybe disrupted. And these are, the funds will be directed to not only the public sector, but also the private sector. Here, I just have a few pictures of the first certificate of origins that were generated in the first round of the Guided Trade Initiative. As I said, we had 7 countries that participated, 27 countries with over 50 trades from Kenya. We saw goods moving from Egypt to Ghana, Ghana to Cameroon, Rwanda to Ghana, Tanzania, Kenya to Ghana, etc. So we are really looking forward to the next round of the AfCFTA, and we urge the businesses in our state parties to actually approach their ministries of commerce and understand what is happening at that level, at national level, in terms of the guided trade initiative. If you are an exporter or an importer in one of those countries, please approach the Ministry of Commerce, or through the AfCFTA, we can put you in touch with the person responsible of the guided trade initiative in that particular country, so that they can also put you as a participating business in the next guided trade initiative that we are going to host hopefully next year. There are usually a lot of questions in terms of as to where do we find information, where do we find the product to trade, how do I know which product is needed in any particular country. That's why I actually put up this slide here to identify some of, or let's say to list some of the online tools that are out there that you can find, where you can go and actually get information on the markets, in terms of market intelligence, understand what are the products, what are the regulations that are needed per country, etc. So we have the International Trade Center, which has got a very dynamic resource center that you can utilize. We have the Africa Trade Observatory. We have the Africa Trade Gateway, which is a very interesting platform developed by AfCFTA, where you can find business opportunities, analyze market attractiveness, conduct due diligence, and connect supply and demand. So the Africa Trade Gateway is divided into, I would say, 4 different platforms. It's a nexus of different platforms. The ATEX, which is a trade where basically traders, you can connect traders, buyers and sellers. You have finance trades that is available, freight goods across African market and borders by listing on ATG Connect. Mansa is the due diligence platform. The Trader is an advisory and a market intelligence platform. And then you have the platform that is in charge of the B2Bs. So these are interesting tools that I believe that as a business person or an importer or trader, it would be interesting to look at, so that you get all the information in terms of market access and market intelligence. We have also a platform that we, I would say, a platform that we run, if I can say so, is the AfCFTA Business Forum. The inaugural edition was launched this year in April. It was held in South Africa, where we had more than 1,200 delegates, ranging from private sector, public sector, CEOs of companies, FDIs, etc. They all come together, SMEs, women and youth entrepreneurs, to discuss the AfCFTA implementation and what we need to do basically to unlock the potential of the AfCFTA. So it was a successful event, and the next event is going to happen in May next year, 2024. The date is the 24th to the 25th of May. This is an event that is going to be widely publicized for people and marketed for people to attend. But I think that it's important to note it in this particular, in this engagement that we are having, that the AfCFTA has a business forum that it hosts every year, and the next one will be, as I said, in May. The venue will be identified soon, I believe, and communicated. So I will stop here and then take questions if there are, or we can follow up later with some further questions. But on and on, we really would like the private sector to be aware of, be sensitized about the AfCFTA and what it entails. We would like the AfCFTA to participate actively. And again, as I said, the Secretariat is doing its best really to develop the tools to support the participation of the AfCFTA. The road is still long, but we really count on the private sector and the proactiveness of the private sector to really push also for implementation at national level, and we will always be ready to support. And as I say, the Guided Trade Initiative is such an important tool that we have been able to roll out last year. This year, more countries are coming on board. They are getting ready. They are meeting the requirement to trade under the AfCFTA. It's important that at national level, the businesses connect with the ministries of commerce, and or if there are, because some countries actually have what we call the AfCFTA National Implementation Committee. So these are the places also where you can get enough information on the AfCFTA. But we at the Secretariat based in Ghana, we are also available to support when needed. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Cynthia. It's a very interesting presentation. Covers a lot really. And it also shows that the AfCFTA is doing a lot of work. It's a huge task of creating the single largest custom-free trading area in the world. But I think the Secretariat is doing a great job. At this point, I have a lot of questions, but we'll keep that I'll keep my questions to the end. However, if you're you're listening in the audience and you have a question, you can put it in the chat box now, or in the Q&A box now, and we will address it. Now, we'll take a brief pause in the program so we can receive an address from Mr. Milan Ramji, who is the WTCA Director for Africa and the Middle East. So Milan, it's over to you now, and after that, we'll resume the schedule.
Thank you so much. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all the participants. And thank you, Edom and the WTC Accra team for arranging this fantastic webinar. I'm sure the audience will find tremendous value in what this great lineup of speakers will be providing. I'm really excited about opportunities available in Africa. Wherever I go, whatever conference I attend, there's always a discussion on how to do business in Africa, how to connect regional and international businesses with others in Africa, where the opportunities are in Africa, and so on. And as described earlier by Her Excellency, there is much work done on the AfCFTA, and it provides a solid trade policy framework that aids the opportunity to thrive in Africa. And I see the strength of growing World Trade Center network of members in the various countries we are in as a catalyst and beacon for the trade policy platform, and turning the talk of opportunity into reality for bottom line earnings. So thank you once again, Edom and the WTC Accra team, for making this webinar possible, and I wish everyone all the best.
Thank you very much, Milan. Our next presentation is by Mr. Michael Koto, who's someone that I really admire and hold in very high esteem. He's one of the best business strategists we have in Africa. He lives and breathes Africa and has worked across the length and breadth of the continent. Mr. Koto is a management consultant, a policy expert, and a strategist with more than 15 years experience working for and advising local corporates, multinationals, international development institutions, global charities and governments. He's a managing partner at the firm Confidence, which is headquartered in Accra, where he oversees a network of 40+ Africa region focused consultants, analysts, advisors, and scholars, providing client delivery across multiple geographies and sectors. His expertise covers strategy, market and policy research, policy design, project development, transaction advisory, investment facilitation, impact evaluation, strategic communication, crisis management, and government affairs relations. He has worked as a consultant to global and regional institutions, including the World Bank, the IFC, the Africa Development Bank, EcoBank Transnational Incorporated, Afrexim Bank, the African Union, etc. He has advised both African and European governments on trade policy, sovereign investment strategies, and international development cooperation. Michael previously worked at the World Bank, where, among others, he was a consultant on the bank's Africa strategy in 2010. He has advised both African and European governments on trade policy, sovereign investment strategies, and international development cooperation. He has a master's in development from Institution of Statistical, Social, and Economic Research, University of Ghana, and alumni of the Oxford Leading Strategy Projects Executive Program at the University of Oxford Said Business School. He has been featured in international press, including the BBC, Reuters, DW, African Business, CNBC Africa, as well as local media in Ghana. And he is the co-author of the forthcoming book, Sovereign Wealth Funds and the New State Capitalism in Africa, which will be published by Palgrave Macmillan. Now, although Mr. Koto works mainly in Accra and not far from our office, it was really not easy getting him to speak on this event due to his tight schedule. And when we spoke, we discussed briefly a number of topics, but I was hoping that he would choose the topic that he chose because it was also my favorite on a list of topics. I wanted his expertise and opinion on this particular issue. Before Mr. Koto jumps on, so there's an interesting development that happened a few years ago. I was talking to a few people, and then they were talking to me about bringing to Africa an insurance investment, insurance company, actually. They wanted to invest in an insurance business. And while we were talking, I realized that the company, foreign business that was hoping to, enter the African insurance market didn't really understand the African consumer. One basic fact, for instance, was that in Africa, we have the extended family system where long-distance relatives do not think it is out of place or expect a prominent member of the family to take care of, their living expenses. So when it comes to life insurance, we usually look at our long-distance relatives who are prominent, well-to-do as our life insurance. If you do not know this, you may struggle a little bit to deal with the African market. On the other hand, funerals in Africa are a big deal. In other parts of the world, when a relative departs, there's a funeral in 2 or 3 days, or maybe a week, and it's not really a big affair. In Africa, it's a well laid down program. And so in the insurance market, there are funeral insurance policies, for instance, which are not very common in other parts of the world. So it's very important for a business that wants to thrive and do well in Africa to understand the African market and the African consumer, because there are nuances that you have to know. And this very important subject is what Mr. Koto is going to speak to today. Now, without delaying his presentation any further, I'd like to invite Mr. Koto to take over. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Adam, and greetings to all our participants. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I know you're joining us from all over the world, and greetings from Accra. And Adam, you've raised expectations a lot. I hope that I can do justice to the topic. Because we have very limited time, what I decided to do was to focus on some of the big themes. And I believe when we get into the Q&A, we can drill down to more specifics. And as you said at the beginning, will obviously be available after the webinar if there is a need to do further engagement on more specific sector trends and sector insights or specific country insights that may become necessary. So as Adam has said, Africa is a unique market. We often talk about Africa in broad strokes, but we know whoever has dealt or has tried to play in the African market knows that it's a big continent, it's a complex terrain, 54 countries, different economies, very complex demographic. And if you spoke to, someone that did business in Africa 15 years ago, and you spoke to them today, they'll tell you that the pace of change has been very rapid. So to go straight to today's topic, who is the African consumer? Who is the African consumer? I like to look at the African consumer in three main categories. And this is important because often if you do market demographics, you would tend to hear either low income, middle income, or high income or high net worth consumers. And that's like the standard classification that we know. But in the context of Africa, I think that it's more insightful to use a different set of categories. And these categories that I would call survivalist, aspirational, and elite categories of the African consumer are important because they help to shed a light on a more forward-looking perspective, to approaching African markets. If you simply looked at middle income or low income categories, they convey a more static understanding of these market segments. But if you look at them in terms of survivalist and aspirational, they change your understanding of how to approach the market. So, and down the line, I'll go into details about the different attributes and characteristics of these segments. But we know that a majority of Africa's population is still low income, a lot of people, poor people. But you need to also look at these as people who are consumers that are spending to survive. Now, survivors are very resilient people. Survivors are people who are forward-looking. They tend to be optimistic. And if you talk to the average African low-income parent in Ghana, for example, if you ask them, where they take their children for education, a lot of them, very low-income folks, will take their kids to private schools, not because they have necessarily got a purchasing power to afford private education. But a lot of low-income parents are doing that because even though they are spending to survive, they are also aspirational at the same time. So you would see that these two segments are converging. A lot of low-income segments are survivalist spenders, but they are at the same time aspirational. So you can't easily categorize them as low-income people who are just spending to survive. These same people have very complex spending habits. They are also spending aspirationally. So what they spend on food is your typical low-income poor person's, food bucket expenditure. But once you shift attention to what they're spending on education and realize that they're pushing hard to put their kids in, private schools, you realize that they're also aspirational at the same time. So it's important to come to the African market with these forward-looking perspectives because they help to cast the customer segment in completely new ways if you want to think long-term about the market. Number two is that the average African consumer is also wealthier than you think. And this becomes obvious once you factor in the lack of consumer credit in most African markets. In most African markets, most consumers still pay for the full price of the product on demand. There's not a lot of credit card consumer habits. So typically, it's not the norm. Now, if you consider that if you have to pay your rent, typically in a lot of African countries, you have to pay between 6 months and 12 months. In some countries, you pay up to 2 years rent advance. If someone has to buy a car in the typical African market, you know, they don't have a car loan for the most part. You know, they save up and they buy the car. If someone has to buy a house, mortgages can be very expensive. You know, most people will buy a piece of land and try and build, but if they are taking a mortgage, they are doing up to 50% down payment in many jurisdictions. So once you factor in the lack of consumer credit, it tells you that the average African consumer is a lot wealthier than you think. And if you flip this, if you flip this in a typical high-income market where consumer credit and credit cards are very common, you would realize that the typical European or typical American consumer is a lot poorer, is way poorer than you think. So these are important context that we should appreciate. The third point I want to talk about is a lot of wealthy people in Africa. The latest private wealth report that we have from about, I think, a year or so ago shows that there are at least 138,000 millionaires in Africa, and together as a group, they hold about $2.4 trillion in private wealth. So you're looking at a continent that's very diverse in terms of wealth, and there's a growing middle class, but there's also a fast-growing segment of millionaires and billionaires. And so, with this context, with this background, I will proceed to talk about some of the typical issues. Now, what does a typical African consumer spend their money on? I've put two countries on the slides, Nigeria and South Africa. Nigeria would give you what reflects the typical situation in most African countries. South Africa would give you, the situation in a more middle-income, wealthier country. Now, the typical average African in a country like Nigeria is still spending about 50% of their average income on food. And that's, followed by transportation, health, education, rent, fuel, entertainment. This is the typical consumer spending, of a typical average person in Nigeria. If you look at South Africa, it's slightly different, and you'd see that the biggest percentage is not food. The biggest percentage is housing and water and other utilities, which takes up about 32% of the average person's income. That's followed by transportation. And then you have other miscellaneous goods and services. Food and beverages comes in at number 4. And then you have clothing, recreational expenses, health, and others. The key difference here is that the poorer the market, or the more you have a higher concentration of poorer and low income consumers, a lot of the spending of the average person, is on things like food and transportation. Transportation is big here because of, we've got a lot of infrastructure challenges in many, African markets. So a lot of expenses tends to go on to transportation. But you see health, you see education, you see rent, also very prominent. I'm going to quickly go over some big trends that we see in African consumer markets. The first one, of course, and I'm sure many of you know this, is that it's a fast-growing middle class. Now, as of now, we know that the estimated size of the African middle class is around 300 million people. Most projections say that this should reach about 400 million by 2030. So this is a very significant trend. The second important trend is rising urbanization. We know that Africa is actually the fastest urbanizing continent in the world at the moment. And 50% of Africans are projected to live in cities by 2030. This is very significant. And it's significant because, you know, of all the advantages of urbanization, market agglomeration, but also consumer agglomeration, which makes it a lot easier to build the relevant supply chains and distribution networks. The more people aggregate in common locations, it's a lot easier to reach them rather than if they are dispersed in remote locations. So urbanization is important, and the more consumers aggregate in common locations, consumer agglomeration, a lot, you know, ideas and trends and fashion spread a lot quicker. And so from both the demand and supply side of, you know, selling your products or reaching markets, it's a lot easier to understand, collect information, and influence market trends. Urbanization is also closely linked to growth in income levels. So that also has a huge impact for, you know, understanding market trends in the continent. Internet penetration is an extremely important trend in Africa at the moment, and with that comes digitization. Now, today, approximately 50% of all Africans have access to internet. It's one of the fastest growing trends. And this is important because if the trend continues, and it's projected to continue, in a decade or two, it's going to be a lot easier to reach the majority of Africans, you know, with important market channels and market penetration. Strategies will become a lot easier. More consumers are coming online. I will talk about that in a bit. But the internet economy in Africa is huge and has big ramifications for understanding consumer habits. There is another trend of rising what we call budgeteers. It's which is basically a budget-conscious consumer. Budget-conscious consumers that are stretching their budgets by shopping at informal markets, buying in bulk, and looking for multifunctional products. It's a very interesting trend. Remember that initially I spoke about survivalists and aspirational consumers. And to be able to straddle, you know, the two habits of being a survivalist and an aspirational spender at the same time means that you have a rising group of consumers who may be called budgeteers. Now, they're trying to balance. It's a balancing act. So they're typically looking for multifunctional products that can, you know, perform a range of functions. If you study the African market, a lot of very smart, you know, brands are increasingly trying to do this. You know, the mobile telephony market is a classic example. Now, if you look at a lot of, you know, consumer and electronic product segments, they are increasingly paying attention to these demands as well. So they are price sensitive. They're trying to juggle a lot of different, you know, needs, and they tend to be budgeteers. So, you know, to understand this market, you also need to think, you need to put yourself in their shoes and think from that perspective. Now, Africa also has the most youthful population in the world at the moment, which also means that you have the most youthful consumers on the planet. The median age in Africa is 20 years, and 70% of Africans are below the age of 30. So this is the most youthful consumer. You have the most youthful consumers on the market in the African continent. And this is important because they are going to shape market trends for at least half a century. So the taste and preferences and habits of the youth in Africa today, at least for persons below the age of 30, are going to be extremely important. They may not be the most dominant in terms of spending power today, but in 10 years' time, you know, 20 years' time, at least for the next 50 years in Africa, this cohort are going to be extremely important. So if you want to understand the African market, if you want to understand African consumers, you need to understand the youth. You need to understand persons below the age of 30, how they are thinking. And I'll come, I will delve into some insights about this segment in the next couple of slides. Another important trend is that consumer and business spending is on the rise. This is important. In 2015, total consumer and business spending hit about $4 trillion in 2015 in Africa. This is projected to hit $7 trillion by 2030. Consumer spending alone, and the bigger chunk of this is business spending, but consumer spending alone is projected to hit 2.1 trillion by 2030, and that's just in about 7 years' time. So consumer spending is on the rise. Informal commerce remains dominant. About 70 to in some jurisdictions 80% of the consumer commerce in Africa is mostly traditional channels are still dominant. We've seen the modernization of retail. So, there is a rise of modern supermarkets. There's a rise of, online shopping habits. These are all on the increase. But for the most part, traditional channels remain dominant. However, the dominance of traditional channels is not happening in isolation, because what we've noticed is that these traditional channels are beginning to interact with online channels in very fascinating ways. A good example, whilst in other jurisdictions you would have e-commerce being e-commerce, typically in Africa, there's a convergence. I will talk about that, in some more detail shortly. Infrastructure and consumer credit. I spoke about consumer credit at the beginning. Infrastructure and consumer credit remain important things because they are big challenges for unlocking the full potential of the African consumer market. Infrastructure is still a challenge. You saw the chart about consumer spending. Transportation is a big one, but infrastructure more broadly. Even now that the continent is digitized, and digital public infrastructure, for example, is still a bit of a challenge. Transportation, but we've seen improvements in all these segments. And consumer credit, as I spoke about earlier on, is also a bit of a challenge. I'll speak in a little more detail about how we could deal with those. Subscription services are taking off, but they are still in early stage, again, because of the small consumer credit sector. Digital payments are buoyant in the continent. Mobile payments in Africa are currently about $500 billion plus. And we know that there are about 600 million plus subscribers to mobile money services in the continent. So even though the use of standard credit cards, it's a very small segment, we know that digital payments, mobile money, fintech services are on the rise. So it's important to understand how this is going to drive consumer spending and consumer habits into the near future. That's an important trend. Now, social commerce or e-commerce. Often we think in terms of e-commerce. The case in Africa is that social commerce is a more important way to view what is happening online, because a lot of the consumer behavior that we see online is not happening through your standard conventional e-commerce platforms. Instead, most of it is being driven by what you see on social media. So in Africa, it's more important to think in terms of social commerce than traditional e-commerce. Traditional e-commerce broadly is now valued at about $30 billion across the continent. But once you view it from the point of view of social commerce, you realize that the market potential is much bigger than what the data is telling you. So if you look at these big trends, what do they tell us? They tell us of a coming wave. And often when you talk about African consumer segments, there's a lot of typical, you see a lot of information, you see a lot of data. In this presentation, I've tried to tone down on those so that we can focus on some of the big themes. And one of the big themes is that as the most youthful continent, most African youth are global natives, what I call global natives, because they benchmark themselves and their way of seeing things and their tastes and preferences. They benchmark themselves to their global consumer peers in other markets, in Asia, in Europe, in the Americas. We have the most consumerist generation in Africa's history. And because they have access to online channels, they are not local in the way they think, in the way they view and see things. They are actually global consumer natives. And this is important because, as I said initially, they are going to shape and define consumer habits and consumer trends, at least for the next half century. Now, again, if you link this to the point that I made about, a lot of these consumers being simultaneously survivalist and aspirational, it becomes apparent that they are determined to succeed. They are determined to be more successful than their parents. But that also means that they're determined to live beyond their means to fulfill those aspirations. So one big implication here is that consumer credit economy is begging to boom in Africa. There's still, a very small emerging market. But I keep talking about consumer credit because if we don't address that, it's going to be difficult to unlock the full potential of the African consumer market. So if you look at a market that's 70% youthful, under 30 years old, very aspirational, but all the trends we've studied says that they are simultaneously survivalist and aspirational at the same time. These are people who are determined to explore all kinds of means to achieve their aspirations. So consumer credit becomes important, mortgage becomes important, all kinds of strategies that makes it possible for them, to unlock their aspirations is key. And an important point here is that it's not enough to simply, target the market and try to sell to the market in the way that the market currently behaves, which is that, on demand, cash down, consumers pay for a particular service or product, they pay in full. We need to have more consumer solutions. Now, another important coming wave, which Madam Cynthia spoke about in the initial stages, is the African Continental Free Trade Area. This is helping to defragment 54 markets, but it has big implications for consumer behavior and possibilities in markets. Now, when you're defragmenting 54 markets, what's happening is that you're creating possibilities for economies of scale, which weren't previously the case. So for companies targeting the African market, the next 10, 15, 20 years is going to be very different once the common market comes into full steam. It's going to be important. Now, the more economies of scale we have, we believe would also have implications that will force consumers to begin to look more inward Africa. This is because at the moment, cheap foreign imports enjoy an advantage in many African consumer segments. So it's still cheaper, to import, say from China, with transportation costs all the way, bring it into an African market and still be able to sell at a lower price point than, many local manufacturers. Once the continent markets become defragmented and it becomes possible for local producers and local brands to begin to produce and sell at bigger scale, they can be more price competitive. Once this happens, local consumers are going to start looking. They're going to start looking inward for local brands. So this is another big wave that's coming. Digitalization and disruption, of course, are big, and I spoke earlier on about the convergent habits of online and offline shopping. Traditional channels are still the biggest, but we're beginning to see a fast growth. And the reason that we're not able to measure how much of shopping habits are being disrupted or how much of it is moving online is because it's not possible to use traditional e-commerce metrics. A lot of it is happening on social media. About 50% of Africans have access to the internet. So in 10, 15 years, the digitalization trends and their impact on consumer channels and consumer behavior is going to be huge. Now, things to watch for a lot of foreign companies that are looking at the African market is that we've got insurgent local suppliers, which are beginning to localize foreign brands. This is important because we also know that there's an emergence of Afro-conscious buyers. There's a recent McKinsey study that showed that 70% of Africans said they were more likely to buy a product if it had an African origin, if it was made in Africa. The only reason, foreign brands still enjoy a dominance in Africa is for obvious reasons. Sometimes, quality preferences and more competitive pricing. But the real desires of a lot of Africans is that if they had, the option to buy an equally good product, which is locally made, they'll rather buy it, a product that's locally made and locally branded. So market players and companies that appreciate these trends are beginning to act smart. And in Ghana, some of the studies we've done at Confidence shows that some local suppliers are importing foreign-made goods, but they are branding them with local brand identities because it has a bigger appeal to local buyers. And this is key. So as a foreign player trying to enter the market, it's important to appreciate these important trends. What the data tells you in terms of how much foreign-made products versus locally made products are selling, it's not a full story. What's hidden, these hidden trends is that local buyers, if they had the same comparable quality and price, they would prefer to buy locally made products. So these brand sensitivities and culture issues are important. Of course, foreign brands have an inherent captive market for obvious reasons, but once many of the trends I've spoken about take effect, quality issues improve. If the continental market opens up, opportunities for bigger scale economies by local manufacturers and local producers, all the indications are that there's a strong growing core of Afro-conscious buyers who would typically prefer to buy a local brand. So for a lot of foreign companies looking at the African market, it's important to know that yes, you as a foreign brand, you have a natural, captive market waiting for you, but this natural advantage is eroding. So it's important for foreign brands to begin to localize, to broaden their appeal, and to connect emotionally with African culture in a way that deepens your African identity as an international brand. It's important to understand Afrocentric, consumerism. A lot of it is, in urban areas, but even when you go to remote areas, you realize that, if you talk to a lot of folks in remote rural communities, they have an even, closer attachment, to local solutions, local brands. But as customers, they are looking to explore new ways, new tastes, new products, and all of that. So Afrofusion is important in terms of how you look at the African market. You have a international brand. How do you fuse it with African culture, to broaden the appeal? So coming to Africa, for a lot of foreign companies trying to come to Africa, I would say that you do your own consumer surveys, because there's a lot of reports out there that are very high level and they don't tell you a lot of the nuances in the markets, the specific segments that you're looking to enter. So it's always important to do your own consumer surveys, do your own research to really understand, because the market is changing very fast. You should pay attention to the youth, because as I've said, we have the most youthful consumers on the planet. And the way they think and their taste and preferences are going to define consumer behavior, consumer trends, and fashion and trends in the continent for at least half a century. So it's very important to take that seriously. You should definitely partner with local businesses and suppliers to build distribution, because they have a lot of advantages. They bring a lot of local insights, native insights that will help your cause, and it's a lot easier to distribute your risk in that sense. I would emphasize again and again that it's important to think harder and more creatively about consumer credit if you want to accelerate market penetration and uptake in Africa. This is one of the, aside infrastructure, this is one of the weaknesses, of the African consumer market. The pace of growth is fast, but it would be even faster if there were appropriately priced, appropriately designed, consumer credit solutions that were properly regulated and available, to African consumers. And typically, you would think that this is something that, financial sector, financial institutions should take care of. The truth is that that's not the case. It's not happening. So if you're coming into the market, it's important to think a lot harder about that, because it's not there. You don't take it for granted that it's there. It's a big differentiator here. It's important from a market entry standpoint to target the fastest growing cities, or at least city clusters. As I've said initially, consumer agglomeration is happening. 50% plus African, populations are now in urban, areas. So this is an important way to target African, segments. And of course, you have to think long term. For a continent whose population is 70% youth, you have to think long term. And at least, for half a century, this is where the action is going to be in Africa. So it's not a market that you want to come in and rush in and cash out. No, you need to think long term and grow with the market. If you are able to build this captive youth market, you grow with them, you grow with the brand. So that's important. And finally, this is a story that the New York Times did a couple of days ago. And the screaming headline that says, "The world is becoming more African." The world is becoming more African. That's because of all the other reasons that I've spoken about already. Africa's population is projected to hit $2.5 billion over the next quarter century. That means that, every 1 in 4 persons anywhere on the globe will be African. And this has huge implications. So this is really going to be the African century, depending on, whether you talk to an optimist or a pessimist. There's something about these huge forces that you cannot ignore. This is definitely going to be the African century, creating, the biggest continental market, the most youthful population. Some have spoken about this in terms of whether it's we'll have a population dividend or it's going to be a population bomb. I tend to be more optimistic, and I am very confident that if you bet on the African market and you think about it in creative ways and you have a long-term perspective, there will be the usual cyclical challenges, but this is where the action is going to be. So as I said initially, I wanted us to focus on some of the big trends because we don't have a lot of time to delve into sector-specific details, and which sometimes is too much numbers. And I hope that in the Q&A, we'll get the opportunity to talk about some more specifics in the industries that you're playing in. Thank you.
Fantastic, Michael. very insightful presentation, and we'll jump to the Q&As later, but I'm sure you also summarized it very beautifully in your last two slides, the essence of your entire presentation. I think our audience will find a lot of actionable insights in there for their businesses. I'll jump now straight to a very important aspect of our program today. You need to understand the legal and regulatory framework if you want to work in Africa. And we selected some countries that will give our audience a good idea of what to know across the continent. We don't want you doing the wrong things and getting into trouble with the law. The first speaker that I would invite is Mr. Kojo Ntrakwa from the law firm Ntrakwa & Co. They are a leading Ghanaian law firm, and Mr. Ntrakwa is a dual qualified lawyer, having been called to the bar in both England and Wales and in Ghana. He specializes in arbitration, corporate and commercial law. His additional areas of practice include construction law and maritime law. He enjoys handling complex cross-border transactions on behalf of his clientele, and over the years, Kojo has provided invaluable practical advice and legal guidance to various foreign companies that have invested in Ghana. He has represented multinationals conducting business in Ghana by resolving some of their most complex disputes. Kojo has also been involved in institutional arbitrations between SIAC, LCIA, CAS, Ghana Arbitration Center, Swiss Arbitration Center, and the ICC. In addition, he's a certified insolvency practitioner and a lecturer in the company and commercial practice at the Ghana School of Law. Colleagues and clients look to him for his broad-reaching expertise, and also respect him as a legal strategist. Mr. Kojo Ntrakwa, I'd like to invite you now to take over. Let me add that Ntrakwa & Co. Are one of our most highly recommended law firms for foreign businesses looking to work in the region. They are tried and tested, several decades of practice, and I invite you to engage with this law firm even after this event if you have any questions or you require any clarifications. So Kojo, I hand over to you now. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam, and hello, everyone. I'll just get straight into it, conscious of the time. Ghana continues to be attractive to investors, despite recent economic challenges we have had. And a lot of the interest in Ghana is perhaps as a result of the fact that as a country, we are peaceful. We've had several peaceful elections. And again, as a country, it's very safe for foreigners to go about their business. I always cite the example of an ambassador of one of the European countries who I tend to see in the neighborhood going for walks at night without any security detail. I'm not sure you can do that in a lot of countries. Again, another reason for Ghana being attractive for foreign investment is the fact that our legal and regulatory framework is investor friendly. I recall a transaction we worked on a few years ago, essentially a British national and a Ghanaian looking to do a joint venture for the construction of houses. Within a space of 2 to 3 months, they were able to set up the company, open a bank account, engage construction company to do the construction. Fast forward a few years down the line, they've sold the houses, declared dividend, and the foreigner has been able to repatriate his profits. Of course, that is not the case for every foreign investor looking to invest in Ghana, but it goes to highlight what is possible within the legal and regulatory framework in Ghana. Whilst in Ghana, a foreign investor is also allowed to do any legitimate business, apart from about 8 businesses that are restricted to Ghanaian nationals. Some of these are the operation of a beauty salon, the printing of recharge cards, production, supply, and retail of sachet water, and the list goes on. It's just about 8 of them. We'll share these slides with you, so I won't spend too much time on that. The common entry strategies into Ghana from where we sit are typically licensing and franchising, mergers and acquisition, and then joint ventures. This is what we tend to see a lot of foreign investors coming to Ghana looking to do. But the best entry strategy to employ would obviously depend on the industry that we are looking to invest in. For example, if you want to go into the petroleum industry, because of our local content laws, you are required to have a local partner. But in all of this, it is critical that you have a trusted local business partner to work with, irrespective of the entry strategy you adopt. And again, in choosing your local partner, I cannot emphasize this point enough. You must ensure that you do due diligence on the corporate entity, and then you also go behind the corporate entity and then do due diligence on the individuals that own the company themselves. In practice, this is a common area for disputes. Disputes between local partners and the foreign partners tend to arise quite often. Now, what are the types of companies that you can look to incorporate in Ghana? We have the company limited by shares. We have a company limited by guarantee, which are usually for not-for-profit purposes, an unlimited company, and then you have the option to go with an external company. That is the company you have in your foreign jurisdiction, you bring it to Ghana and then have it registered here as an external company or a branch office. But the most common corporate structure we tend to see is in respect of the company limited by shares. Ghana, in a bid to improve our legal and regulatory framework, has fairly recently also passed the Companies Act of 2019. And essentially, this act has modernized the way businesses run in Ghana. For example, if you're looking to set up a company now in Ghana, you need not have a nature of business. You can set up the company without a nature of business. Again, you also need not have a constitution. So all of this should make it faster to set up a company in Ghana. We've also recently, in 2020, passed the Corporate Insolvency and Restructuring Act. What that has also done is to introduce administration into the legal framework in Ghana. In the past, a distressed company had to go straight to liquidation. You didn't have the option to go into administration, which I term being on your sickbed, with the option of restructuring and then coming out of the sickness to continue operation. That has now been introduced with the Corporate Insolvency and Restructuring Act. To set up a company in Ghana is fairly simple. It should take between 3 to 7 days once you have all the prescribed information available. Typically, you start with a search with the name of the company you have. And once that name is available, you can go ahead and then complete the prescribed form. There's an option to complete the forms online, but I understand in the last few months, we've had challenges with the online system. But once again, I understand the Office of the Registrar of Companies are working hard to have that resolved. What is some of the information that goes into these prescribed forms? Here you are looking at the particulars of the shareholders. Again, beneficial ownership, if there are any, you must indicate. But notwithstanding the fact that the process of incorporation is fairly simple, it is also critical that you engage a local expert to assist you in this process, simply because our standard constitutions do not necessarily have provisions that favor foreign investors entirely. So once you engage the local partner, it's possible for them to amend the constitution and then insert key investor protection provisions, such as, for example, ensuring you have control of the boardroom, ensuring that it is possible to issue preference shares in respect of the company you are looking to incorporate. And again, even restricting certain powers within the constitution of the company so that it's only available to the majority shareholder. After the company has also been set up, you would typically also have to register with various government agencies, such as the Ghana Investment Promotion Center, the Ghana Revenue Authority. And again, depending on the industry you are going into, you may also additionally have to register with those specific industry regulators. If it's banking, you comply with the Banking Act. If you are going into fintech, you have a Payment Systems Act, you also have to comply with, among others. One of the biggest challenges for many new entrants in Ghana, and it's something I particularly don't like talking about because I've had many conversations with foreign investors who have complained about this. But essentially, as a foreign investor, if you're looking to do a joint venture, you must bring in a minimum capital of 200,000 USD in cash or capital goods. And then the Ghanaian partner should have not less than 10% equity shares. Again, you have the option to go in as a wholly owned foreign company. And there, the minimum capital is also 500,000 United States dollars in cash or capital goods. If it's foreigner engaged in trading, then here you're looking at a minimum capital of 1 million United States dollars, and then you must employ at least 20 skilled Ghanaians. Although this is a challenge, I also understand there are plans in place to amend this with the option of abolishing it altogether or even reducing this threshold. Historically, some investors have sought to bypass this arrangement by going with the option of an external company, but that is not correct. And in practice, the Ghana Investment Promotion Center will flag it and even ask that the external company should comply with these minimum capital requirements. Of course, again, in practice, we have seen other creative ways that people have adopted in order to mitigate this. But as I said, I've had many conversations on this with investors complaining about this. But the good news is that we are looking to amend it with the hope of reducing or abolishing it altogether. A foreign investor or any business in Ghana, naturally, you are expected to pay some taxes. Currently, our corporate tax rate is 25%. We've also introduced a growth and sustainability levy, which is between 1% to 5%, depending on the category of business that you are involved in. There are some tax incentives available for investors, such as reduced tax rates, and all of this depends on the industry that you are looking to work in. Ghana has also signed DTAs, double taxation agreements, with Germany, France, Italy, the Netherlands, UK, South Africa, and a few others. And what these DTAs do is to seek to prevent taxpayers from paying the same income in more than one jurisdiction. So that's good news in terms of having DTAs available. A foreigner is free to acquire land in Ghana. There's a little caveat in the sense that you cannot acquire a leasehold that exceeds 50 years at one particular time. Historically, our land tenure system had challenges. Typically, you had one land being sold to multiple owners. But again, in 2020, we passed a Land Act, which now criminalizes that practice. And so as a result, we anticipate the land tenure issue would reduce drastically. We've also recently modified, or with the help of our development partners, modified the land registration system, and now it's possible to undertake electronic searches on land. Dispute resolution. In the event a dispute should arise, our local courts and international arbitration are both beneficial modes of resolving your disputes. Ghana's constitution guarantees the independence of the judiciary. An average case at the High Court should take about 2 years from start to finish. And there is absolute faith in the judiciary in Ghana, to the extent that I have first-hand experience of foreign companies or foreign investors appearing before our courts with their issues and getting positive judgments, either against government institutions or local partners. If you're looking at ADR, the Ghana Alternative Dispute Resolution Act is also modeled on the UNCITRAL model law. We've also adopted the UN Convention on foreign arbitral awards. So as you can tell, a foreign award can naturally be enforced in Ghana. In terms of opportunities, there are so many opportunities. The previous speakers have highlighted this. Traditional areas such as the agri sector, oil and gas, manufacturing sector, real estate are still relevant. But in recent times, what we have seen is a development of the fintech sector, and then climate change is also taking the forefront in Ghana. More recently, in line with the operationalization of the Paris Agreement, Ghana has gone ahead to set up a carbon markets office. And Ghana, for example, requires about 9.3 billion USD to invest in about 49 nationally determined goals. And some of Ghana's mitigation activities are in clean cooking and then improved rice production. So you can see there's lots of opportunities in climate change-oriented investment in Ghana as well. Some of the global brands now in Ghana are the Unilevers of this world, the Nestle's, the Coca-Cola's, the Talos. Some of these have been operating in Ghana for over 30 years. In the news recently, I've also heard that British Airways, for example, has increased its Accra to London flights from 7 times a week to 10 times a week. Again, these are all positive signals for Ghana as a whole. Thank you very much, and happy to take the questions in the Q&A session.
Thank you very much, Kojo. Let's jump now to our next presentation straight. Mr. Tom Onyango is a senior partner at Triple OK Law LLP. Tom's core practice centers around financial services and real estate development. He has extensive experience in a wide range of real estate transactions, including offering advisory and due diligence services in major capital investments. He has advised developers on raising real estate development finance and advised financial institutions on the perfection of securities. He has also structured several large-scale real estate projects and has put together numerous innovative commercial property transactions, including some award-winning projects. In addition, he advises many businesses in Kenya and sits on the board of several companies. He has a knack for astute legal interpretation and meticulous attention to detail, which has seen Tom carve a very distinctive niche in commercial real estate and conveyance matters. Adding to previous accolades, he is ranked as a recommended lawyer in the Legal 500 EMEA 2023 Real Estate and Construction Report. I'd like to invite now Mr. Tom Onyango to take over the presentation.
Here in Nairobi, and I just want to say welcome to the presentation.
My firm is Triple OK Law Advocates, as we've been told. We are an indigenous Kenyan firm. We are ranked among one of the top 50 law firms in Africa. And we are a member of a group called Meritus, which brings together independent law firms in Africa. Our topic today is on key insights for foreign companies to get to thrive in Africa. And I think the people who spoke before me have touched a bit on what I was going to say regarding Africa. Sometimes I think it is lost on those who deal with Africa, the size of the continent. Africa is huge. Africa has 30 million square kilometers of space. It's actually the size of US, China, and Brazil combined, which is large. There are 6 time zones from the east to the west of Africa. A flight, if you're coming from Cape Town, which is at the bottom of Africa, to the topmost, probably around Casablanca in Morocco, it's a 13.5-hour flight. And even if you're moving from east to west, from Somalia in the Horn of Africa to Senegal, which is probably the most west, it's again almost a 13-hour flight. The population, as Madam Cynthia said, is about 1.3 billion. Africa's GDP is about $3.4 trillion as of 2022. So it sits a little above the UK and very close to India and a little below Germany. So in terms of GDP, of the combined GDP, if you compare Africa with India, there's not much of a difference, both in terms of the numbers, the number of people, and also the combined GDP. So Africa it's small worldwide, but still significant. I would say that, because the countries I mentioned, I think Germany is probably the 4th largest economy in the world, and the UK on its own should be around the 4th or 5th with the changes. But there are 54 African countries who between them speak anywhere between 1,000 to 2,000 languages. 75 of those languages are spoken by more than 1 million people. I mean, those are statistics that I think for people who are interested in investing in the continent, I'm sure there's something that can be made out of that. One of the previous speakers, I believe, has pointed out the fact that by 2050, a quarter of the world's population will be resident in Africa, and 1/3 of the working population. What does that mean? It means a big market of people will be working. In 2021, Africa received about $83 billion in foreign direct investments. If you look at Kenya, and my discussion will be mainly centered on Kenya. Kenya is an economic powerhouse in East Africa. Kenya was a colony of the British, and it's part of the British Commonwealth. In fact, even today, as we speak, the King Charles is in the country on a tour. His first, I believe, tour to a Commonwealth country since his coronation. Kenya's had democratic elections every 5 years from independence in 1963, and the last elections we had were in 2022. Kenya is positioned on the equator, and we have 2 seasons, either it's raining or it's not raining. Currently, there's a bit of rain. The population is about 55 million in Kenya, and our GDP, as of 2022, just shy of $115 billion. So let's look at the issues that in terms of the financial sector. What are the things we're looking at? I want us to look at financial goods, and there we've got in the Kenyan market, we've got bonds issued by central bank. Of course, we've got loans, and we've got a thriving capital market. We've got the Nairobi Securities Exchange. I think it's probably celebrating almost 60 years. The Kenyan currency is the Kenya shilling. It exchanges at about 150 shillings to the US dollar, for those who do not know. In terms of financial institutions, we've got a total of 39 banks in Kenya, of which I believe 27 are locally owned, and the others are foreign owned. We've got many, many microfinance institutions.
The pension sector is regulated by we've got the Retirement Benefits Authority. We've got companies, and a lot of what has been shared before in Ghana applies to Kenya in terms of the process of registering, incorporating a company and registering. A lot of that, I think, has been shared by Quadwo. There are many similarities that I need not go over. Kenya has a very vibrant sector that deals with savings and credit cooperatives. It's probably from 1967, 68. It's been a very vibrant sector, and a lot of Kenyans have benefited from that. It's an area where we haven't had much direct investment because of the way the sector works. But certainly it is something that has seen a lot of Kenyans prosper as a result of joining cooperatives and getting loans for personal development through that. The insurance sector is also quite vibrant with a good number of insurance companies domiciled here. I've talked about the equity markets in the Nairobi Securities Exchange. I think also I've talked about bonds. There are also commodity markets in Kenya quite active. The currency exchange, we have got a lot of forex dealers. And one of the things which you're sure about in Kenya is, yes, there's a slight difference between the quoted exchange rate and what we call the black market. There's a very slight difference, which tells you that the rate is probably right. So if the shilling is exchanging currently at 150 officially, you'll probably get the 151, 152 shillings in the alternative market. So there's a very small difference. We have a number of credit rating agencies that operate in Kenya that would assist anybody who's going to look for funding here, or to anybody looking to invest in that area. At least there's a base which you can use through the credit rating agency to help you determine who is entitled to credit. We've got also, of course, equity analysts that work in the market. In terms of compliance and risk management, investor protection, we've got quite a bit of legislation regarding that. The Capital Markets Authority Act provides for the establishment of the authority, but also a method in which those who participate in the capital markets are regulated, and also where if there is any malfeasance, there's a way in which that can be dealt with. In terms of consumer protection, we have a Consumer Protection Act, which was promulgated in the year 2012, that provides very robust mechanism for protecting consumers. Financial stability, as I've talked about, yes, there's been a depreciation of the shilling to a level of 150. So this year the shilling has had a battering, but again, which currency hasn't relative to the shilling in the last few years? That has been a problem. Market efficiency, both the capital markets and the financial markets are regulated and are really left to control themselves. We don't have exchange controls in Kenya. That's something that has been, I think, a major factor that has contributed to Kenya's robust market. We don't have exchange controls. And by and large, those who invest in this market are so far been able to, bring in and take out whatever they want. In terms of competition, I would say that Kenya has a very competitive market. There is virtually no line of business where you have monopolies. I would probably think of monopolies in probably one area in power provision, where the local utility, Kenya Power, has almost a monopoly. But still, what I'm seeing in the market is that there's plenty of competition coming in now, especially with solar. So apart from that, in most areas, it's quite competitive. Even if you look at telecommunications, we have a major telecommunications company, Safaricom, which controls probably 65% of the market. But still, there are other significant players. One area that may be of interest is to any investor in Kenya is how do you prevent financial crime? We'll talk about that a little later when we talk about the Process of Crime and Money Laundering Act. Fairness. We've said that, we put that there because of our 2010 constitution. Kenya passed a constitution in 2010, which has a very robust provisions regarding with the Bill of Rights, and provides for fair administrative action in that Bill of Rights, and gives Kenyans and anybody who's operating in this market a right to challenge administrative action or administrative decisions which are perceived as unfair, and one can go to court. People have gone to court. It's not just a theoretical right. A lot of Kenyans have gone to court to challenge the decisions made by administrative bodies. We move on to a bit more in terms of the administrative framework and the regulatory framework. As I've said, the Constitution of Kenya 2010 gives a right to information and significant protections in terms of consumer protection. The right to information can actually be enforced against both the state and also other people. So if your right has been infringed as an individual, you have a right to correct, for example, where misleading information has been posted to your detriment. You can actually enforce that right in court. And then in terms of consumer protection, the provisions are actually very wide for somebody who's coming to invest here. Section 46 of the Act provides for goods and services where those are not of reasonable quality. You can actually sue for that. There's also a right regarding information. There's consumer rights regarding one's health. There's also provision for compensation in case those rights are infringed. The 2010 Constitution required Parliament to enact provisions in terms of consumer protection, and as I've said, so the 2010 Constitution provided for it, and it was followed soon thereafter by the enactment of the Consumer Rights Act in 2012. We have a very robust Banking Act. The last major revamp of that was in 2019. There are provisions in that act that prescribe punishment for non-compliance by those in the banking sector. A lot of that is enforced by the Central Bank of Kenya. Where you apply for a banking license and you obtain it, that right to use that license, you must launch operations within a maximum of 12 months. The central bank is actually quite strident in its investigation of the suitability of applicants. Assuming that you want to come to Kenya to set up a bank, yes, you can do that, and we've gone through that process with a number of banks on behalf of the banks that are wishing to set up here. The checks on the directors, the chief executive, and other officers of the bank is actually very robust. I can tell you that. They also check on significant shareholders. It isn't just ticking a box. They would actually check that the people who are investing in a bank in Kenya are suitable investors. They don't have a shady past. It's something that we've gone through with a number of clients seeking to invest in Kenya and to set up banks in Kenya. I know Central Bank is very, very detailed in checking that. Currently, what they're doing, they're undertaking the registration of digital lenders. It's been a huge exercise in the last 2 years with about maybe 300, 400 applicants, of which I believe only 15 have so far gone through the paces and received approval. There are many others who are in the process of being approved. There's of course a license fee that is paid annually to the central bank. It's nothing prohibitive. I've talked about the Consumer Protection Act 2012, which was passed pursuant to Section 46 of our 2010 Constitution. And I think I wanted to give a taste of the issues that arise in terms of the legal and regulatory framework, because a lot of investors would say, with all these things that we are saying, assuming I was to say, let me put my money where my mouth is and invest in Africa, talking about Kenya specifically, what protections do I have? I've mentioned about the Consumer Protection Act 2012, the right to full disclosure and information pre-agreement or pre-contractual sign-up. I think those are things that would be of interest to anybody wishing to invest here. What is it that if I came into this act, into this country, what is it that I can do and get away with, or what is it that the law protects the consumers of my services? And also me, as an investor, I'm also a consumer of services in Kenya. What are the protections that I have? Just want to mention a couple of things in that regard, which are not in the slide. The Nairobi Center for International Arbitration, which is set up by an act, 2013 act. And what we've seen is increasingly people are using that center for really an assurance that if you invest here and you happen to get into a dispute with the people that you deal with, is there any recourse? So the Nairobi Center exists and is getting more and more active. The other point that probably think would be of interest to investors is the presence in Nairobi of Africa Trade Insurance, which is a facility that in which governments invest. And should you invest in Africa and incur losses as a result of government action, the way the facility works is that it covers Africa, but the countries that subscribe to it, and you will get compensation. So the governments pay into the fund. If in case, for example, you incur losses because of government policy, then you are capable of being compensated by through that Africa Trade Insurance mechanism as a result of losses suffered by an investor because of government action. I then want to turn briefly to the Proceeds of Crime and Money Laundering Act. It is a 2009 Kenyan Act established to counter money laundering and related crimes. As practitioners of law in Kenya, we are also among the reporting entities, also accountants report under that. There is, under that act, the establishment of the Financial Reporting Center, Section 21 of the Act. There are serious penalties in our currency, but for the sake of the audience, the penalties for under Section 16 for breaches of the Act, you can be fined up to a figure of $170,000 for if you're a company, and if you're an individual on a personal level, you can face fines of up to $34,000 for breaches under that Act. The Act also sets up the Anti-Money Laundering Advisory Board. That board is composed of 12 members, including the Attorney General, the Governor of the Central Bank of Kenya, the Inspector General of Police, and the Kenya Bankers Association, among others. But the total membership of that advisory board is 12. The Asset Recovery Agency, set up under the Act, has been very active in the last few years. I think I should say there have been instances of Kenya being reported as to having cases of, I would say, corruption cases. A lot of those are now being handled by the Asset Recovery Agency, where somebody is felt to have breached the provisions on the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Act in Kenya. The Asset Recovery Agency has come in to try and recover the money from those who breach. So it's some kind of, I think it's a relief for those who invest here. What happens in case I am the victim of corrupt practices? Next, I want us to briefly talk about the Central Bank of Kenya. The bank has the objectives which are listed there, one of which is to formulate and implement foreign exchange policy. The Central Bank of Kenya holds and manages Kenya's foreign exchange reserves. It licenses and supervises authorized dealers, that include banks and forex dealers. There are about 4 million Kenyans who work abroad. A lot of them remit money to Kenya, either through formal channels or through what we call in local parlance, hawala, where you have got somebody who's abroad, stationed abroad in Canada, for example. So what they do is the money will be deposited in Canada and remitted in Kenya through informal channels. But officially, there are about 4 million Kenyans who work abroad. A lot of the money that they remit is through the central bank, through either forex dealers or through the commercial banks. The other object of the Central Bank of Kenya Act is issuing of cost of currency notes and coins. We had a printer of currency in Kenya, Delaru, up until about 2 years ago when their contract expired. But Kenya, for quite some time, had been printing local currency here. The other function of the Central Bank of Kenya is, of course, to foster liquidity, solvency, and proper functioning of a stable, market-based financial system. And then it's, of course, as all central banks, is a banker and advisor to, and the fiscal agent of the government of Kenya. In terms of commercial banks, as I said earlier, there are 39 commercial banks in Kenya. They are licensed by the central bank. There are instances where the central bank has revoked licenses. It has of course, led to some kind of instability. It hasn't happened recently, but there are cases that up until about maybe 6 years ago, there were probably like 44 banks, and a number of them have merged, and a number of them have had their licenses revoked because of malpractice. In terms of regulation, that regulation by central bank requires banks, of course, to maintain a minimum capital requirement. What central bank has been doing is increasing over the years, increasing the minimum core capital required by banks. Currently, I believe the minimum will be about $1 million, which would be not $1 million, $1 billion shillings, which is probably one can do the math, but a shilling is 150 shillings make $1. So the current minimum requirement for core capital of banks is $1 billion shillings. The regulations of central bank limit advances that a bank can make to an individual borrower. Also, how much of the share capital. So what we have is there's a maximum amount that an individual investor can have in a bank, but also a maximum amount that a bank can advance to any individual borrower. The regulations also limit the amount of credit that a bank can give, and also in terms of guarantees that are issued by a bank, the regulations also cover that. There is supervision and surveillance of institutions by the central bank and those who invest in commercial banks. What are the challenges that we face in the country? Obviously, there are enforcement of the regulatory framework. There are challenges, there would be challenges regarding that. There is red tape in compliance and risk management procedures. I would say that overall, my view is that central bank has tried that through either penalizing the ones that do not toe the line, but there will be challenges. I would not say it's 100%. And we have had a problem with money laundering and white collar crime. Money laundering, because of the neighborhood where we are right next to Somalia. For a long time, the problem that we had with Somalia was a problem of piracy. So the pirates, because Somalia is a society that has had challenges. Because of that, those challenges, there's a lot of piracy in the Indian Ocean. That piracy money has to find its way into a system. And for a long time, Kenya had a problem with that. I think most of that has now been dealt with and is no longer there. So the money laundering that we experienced because of piracy, I think I would say is dying down. White collar crime, it's there. I guess it's an international problem. I don't think it's specific to Kenya, but it affects Kenya, I would say. So to that extent, that's one of the challenges that I would identify. But my overall assessment is that Kenya is an excellent investment destination. There will be challenges, but those challenges are also opportunities. As you've seen, those who've studied the history of India as a country would know that a lot of people who studied the US in the early 2000s and late 90s went back home, found so many problems, and in those problems, found solutions and ways in which India could rise up to be a leading economy in the world. Thank you very much, and we wait for the question and answer when the time comes. Thank you.
Thank you. It's easy to tell that what we set out to do was very ambitious to, give all this presentation covering all these regions. And we are almost at the end of the program. We have a last presentation from Mr. Willem van Rensberg, who's head of operations at the chambers of Urmila Bulel SC with over 20 years of experience. Willem is highly accomplished attorney and notary and conveyancer licensed to practice law in South Africa and Mauritius. He holds a degree in commercial law and an LLB from the University of Pretoria. In addition, he possesses an LLM in international business law from the Middlesex University and is a certified anti-money laundering specialist. Willem has worked as the head of his own law firm based in South Africa and is currently a director of the Chamber of Urmila Bulel SC, where he also leads their compliance unit, further bolstering his extensive experience in commercial law and international legal matters. Willem, it's my pleasure to invite you now to make your presentation, and then we'll have the short Q&A session to bring our program today to a conclusion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I just want to share my screen quickly. Right. Okay, everyone. It's nice to meet you, and thank you for staying with us for so long. I'll try to make it brief. I know we're running a bit over time, probably. So just as a starting point, we from the Chambers of Urmila Bulel SC in Mauritius, one of the oldest law firms in Mauritius. I've started my career in South Africa and then moved here, and now very much involved in Mauritius for the last almost 6 years. Chambers of Urmila Bulel is also known as Temple Group. We part of a law firm compliance business and also a management company. So if you see Temple Group, it's also the same. It's the same as the Chambers. Right. So let's just dive in. Tom Onyango mentioned that Africa is a huge continent, which I'd fully agree with. Mauritius, on the other hand, is not so big. In fact, Mauritius is just a little bit bigger than London, although London has about 7 times more people than Mauritius. It fits 219 times into Kenya, 119 times into Ghana, and 10 times into the Kruger National Park in South Africa. So, we do not have huge mineral resources. Mauritius does not have huge, oil and gas reserves. We do not have a lot of land for agriculture. And so it's very interesting that, there's only limited, we have a lot of fish, we had a lot of sunshine, we have a lot of beaches, and so some sugarcane. And this is how we started. And we had to make the best of these resources to get where we wanted to be. Now, in 1961, with a population of 650,000 people, the economic outlook for Mauritius was rather bleak. The whole economy hinged on agriculture, specifically sugarcane. Since then, our economy diversified substantially, and the per capita income is expected to reach $11,000 at the end of this year. In 2022, it was ranked first in Africa and 47th in the world for ease of doing business. And this is probably the one thing that Mauritius has, is because of these resources that we do not have. What we do need to do is, or what we do have and sell, is the ability to do business in Mauritius. Mauritius, the relatively strong economic performance of Mauritius is often attributed to this diversification of the economy. A strong services sector, including finance and tourism, political stability, and a history of good governance. Currently, the the primary sector, industry's contribution to the economy is only 4%, whereas the services sector contributes 75% of the economy. The legal system in Mauritius is a hybrid system inherited from its colonization by the French and the British. So the constitution is based on the Westminster model, and procedural laws are also English based. The official language is also English, but the substantial law is derived from French law. Modern business laws such as company law, insolvency and financial services laws are modeled on the Anglo-Saxon jurisdictions. So as an example, although our highest court of appeal is in the UK, which is the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council, our succession and property law is based on French law, whereas the Mauritius Companies Act and the Insolvency Act is modeled on their New Zealand counterparts. So this can be a bit confusing. For instance, old property transfer deeds would be in French, whereas most of the current documents are in English. So it helps in Mauritius if you can speak to French as well. I learned this the hard way. So the highest court is the Supreme Court of Mauritius. The highest court of appeal, as I said, is the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council. Commercial disputes can be settled in the Commercial Court of Mauritius, labor disputes in the Industrial Court, and then alternatively parties can submit their disputes to arbitration. And I have to say, I get the notion from my colleagues who spoke here today as well, and I think this is probably true for the rest of Africa, if not the world, that arbitration is becoming more and more popular in Mauritius as well, and is definitely faster than the rather slow court process in Mauritius. So Mauritius is a signatory country of the model law and also a member of the New York Convention on the recognition and enforcement of foreign arbitral awards. In Mauritius, there's the MIAC, which is the Mauritius International Arbitration Center, and the MCCI Arbitration and Mediation Center. These are the two well-known arbitration institutions in Mauritius. Experience has proved that arbitration is much more convenient as well and also cheaper. Right, the regulatory bodies in Mauritius, if you're going to do business in Mauritius, you will start with the Registrar of Companies, where local and foreign people go to register companies. The Economic Development Board is responsible for marketing the country, but is also there to regulate and supervise any foreign investor who seeks to invest in property or to acquire a residence, a work, or an occupation permit in Mauritius in order to operate their business activities. The Financial Services Commission, the FSC, is the overall body for anything financial. For instance, if you're going to operate a global business company, or if you're going to operate in the financial sector. And then there's also, of course, the Mauritian Revenue Authority. One that's not included in this list is the Bank of Mauritius, which is the central bank. And the Bank of Mauritius it gets involved when you want to apply for a finance or banking license. Then the business vehicles. I hope I'm not going too fast. So the two most common corporate structures are domestic companies, which has the majority of its business inside Mauritius. It does not mean it cannot have foreign ownership, but the majority, it's about the business. The majority of the business is conducted within the Mauritian market. And the other one is the global business companies, or GBCs. Now, GBCs must have at least one resident director, but conduct the majority of its operations outside of Mauritius. They are still tax residents of Mauritius, and so they benefit from the same tax structures, taxation treaties, and exemptions as domestic companies do. Mauritius also caters to more specialized corporate vehicles that may suit investment models such as trusts, protected sale companies, collective investment schemes, funds, and all the rest. Another common vehicle is a foreign incorporated company that has a place of business or is carrying on business in Mauritius, commonly referred to as a branch, as what were also mentioned in Ghana. It's regulated largely as if it were incorporated under the laws of Mauritius. So the best business structure will obviously depend on the specific requirements of each business, and mainly you can differentiate between whether that business is going to do most of its business inside Mauritius or be stationed in Mauritius but do most of its business outside of Mauritius. The solution of companies in Mauritius follows the same international principles as other countries. As I said before, it's modeled basically on the New Zealand laws, which is also a Commonwealth country. Right. So corporate tax and individual tax. Mauritius has a corporate tax rate of 15%, but there are many exemptions that apply, and many companies bring it down to as low as 3%. There's also in some cases, it can even go down to 0% or a tax holiday of 10 years if you are operating in one of the key industries identified for special taxation benefits. There's no capital gains tax, there's no donations tax, there's no inheritance tax, and the value-added tax rate is 15%. Mauritius holds double taxation avoidance agreements with 46 countries and is a party to a series of new treaties under negotiation. Recently, Mauritius implemented a progressive tax system since, in fact, July this year. Previously, it was capped 15% or fixed 15%, just as with companies. And then COVID came, and after COVID, there was some catching up to do for the economy, and so certain individuals earning more than a minimum threshold amount paid 25% tax. This has now been changed back and actually replaced by the progressive system, whereas the tax is now on a sliding scale and the maximum being 20%. So it's not a fixed 20% as the previous 15% used to be. It's a sliding scale capped at 20%. There's also no donations tax for individuals, no inheritance tax. Foreign investment. So there are generally no restrictions on foreign investments in Mauritius, save when foreigners are seeking to invest in property. This includes immovable property in Mauritius, so the property itself, or shares in a company which owns immovable property in Mauritius. So these restrictions basically impose minimum investment thresholds and allows investment in only certain categories of properties. If I can explain quickly, you can buy a premium property at $375,000 plus, which is normally, those are normally properties on the coast in specific designated areas or schemes targeted at the foreign market. So you have to buy in specific areas for at least $375,000. This gives you residence, permanent residence, as long as you hold the property. You can buy for cheaper. You can buy an apartment in any block that's at least 3 stories high. In any part of the island, you'll have to spend around 6 million rupees, which is about $130,000. This does not give you permanent residence unless you spend the minimum of $375,000, but at least you have an apartment in Mauritius. So this you can hold as an investment, not necessarily to acquire residency. If you buy anything, fixed property anywhere else or for any lower amount, then you need special permission from the minister. So foreign investors are not required to obtain formal approval for the transfer of profits, dividends, capital gains in or out of the country, because the foreign exchange control regime in Mauritius, Mauritius has abolished the Foreign Exchange Control Act in 1994, and thereby allowing free repatriation of capital. So this is also targeted at more investment. Employment law, if I can go quickly through this. The main law, although not the only one governing employment in Mauritius, is the Workers' Rights Act of 2019. In line with globalization and ease of doing business, government encourages more migrant workers to join the Mauritian workforce, and visa conditions and salary thresholds has been lowered over the past few years. Migrant workers' rights are generally the same as for local employees. They enjoy the same protection against unfair treatment. Foreign workers and Mauritians enjoy the same constitutional rights regarding discrimination, equal remuneration, and equal opportunities, and are free to join trade unions. To live and work in Mauritius, a foreign national should, however, fall within one of these three categories. Firstly, either an investor, secondly, a professional, which is somebody who's employed, or thirdly, a self-employed person. There's also a new premium visa aimed at easing the access and process for digital nomad workers who are not going to join the job market in Mauritius, but will derive the income from outside whilst being based here. This has been implemented shortly after and actually during the COVID pandemic. Now, intellectual property, Mauritius is a member of various organizations like the World Intellectual Property Organization, Universal Copyright Convention, the Berne Convention, signatory to the Paris Convention for the Protection of Industrial Property, also the Patent Cooperation Treaty, or PCT, as from 15 March this year, the Hague and Madrid systems for easy filing since February this year. The PCT, the Hague and Madrid systems, greatly eases the registration process for international patents, for designs, and for trademarks. The Industrial Property Act 2019 covers all industrial property-related issues through the Mauritius Industrial Property Office. Data protection, the legislation overseeing data protection is the Data Protection Act of 2017. It aims at bolstering individual control and autonomy concerning personal data, aligning with contemporary international norms and related issues. The Act draws its foundational philosophy from the European General Data Protection Regulations, or GDPR, focusing on the safekeeping and defense of individual privacy rights concerning the collection, management, storage, transmission, and treatment of personal and sensitive information. The law also pertains to all sectors. It's designed to promote lawful, fair, and transparent practices so that people are adequately informed and granted security to maintain the confidentiality of their personal data, and thereby mitigating the increasing hazards of data breaches. Then money laundering and anti-corruption. Now, this is maybe a slight blemish on Mauritius' reputation. We were at some point concerned or considered a tax haven, as some would call it. Of course, many of the other island countries were also at some point, and some of them are still considered tax havens. Mauritius overhauled its whole anti-money laundering system, and we were removed finally from the Financial Action Task Force grey list in 2021, and also from the EU blacklist. Today, there are multiple legal frameworks aimed at tackling issues like money laundering and corruption. For instance, the Financial Intelligence and Anti-Money Laundering, or FIAML Act, and its regulations. In line with other jurisdictions, the Financial Intelligence Unit is responsible for AfCFTA enforcement and forms part of the International Cooperative Networks in this regard. The Prevention of Corruption Act, or POCA, is aimed at the detection and prevention of offences such as bribery and corruption. And there's also a new Whistleblower Act that's being promulgated but has not been implemented yet. Conclusion, and once again, sorry if I went a bit fast. So Mauritius, why do business here? We're a stable government, stable rule of law. The ease of doing business is our number one marketed product, I suppose. We have a well-maintained infrastructure, well-regulated industry, cross-border investment hub. We have a skilled labor force. You know, Mr. Cotto mentioned education is something that the people on the African continent spend a lot of money on. Mauritius has about 40 tertiary training institutions. The largest two of the private institutions is probably Middlesex, UK, and Curtin, Australia, both having over 2,000 students. And of these, around half of them are probably international students, most of them from Africa. So in 2022, Mauritius also became one of the first jurisdictions in the world to adopt a legislative framework to regulate virtual assets, while the Ministry of Financial Services and Good Governance is currently working on a legislative environmental, social and governance framework. By staying abreast with global regulatory developments and standards, Mauritius provides a premier environment and infrastructure for investment. And I think this is probably, if I have to wrap up with that sentence, because of all these resources Mauritius do not have, the one thing we do have and the one thing that we do need is foreign investment. And as such, the country to reach the GDP that we have at the moment, to reach the growth and to reach the stable economy, we are very reliant on foreign investment, and therefore we have to make it as easy as possible for businesses to do business in Mauritius, for investments to invest here, for investors to invest here, and to protect and safeguard the investments of people who invest in Mauritius. Thank you very much. Looking forward to the Q&A.
Thank you very much, Willem. There's a question which says that in your jurisdiction, are there areas that foreigners cannot invest 100% ownership in? So I'll put that to Willem first and then ask the other lawyers to address that.
Right. So for me, in Mauritius, not really. You have a directorship responsibility though. So you have to have a professional or a qualified director for a domestic company as well as for a foreign entity. So you have to have local directors, but these are normally directors working in a management company who are professional directors. They will not interfere in the business, just make sure that you stay on the straight and narrow. But in terms of shareholding, apart from what I mentioned for properties, fixed properties, there's no requirement, for instance, that there has to be a percentage Mauritian shareholding at all. No. So it can be 100% foreign owned.
Okay. I'll put the same question to Mr. Onyango and to Mr. Ntrakwa as well.
Thank you. So we had restrictions in some areas like telecommunications until recently, but the law was changed and now there are no real restrictions in terms of ownership. The only thing I would say is in regard to land, where there are requirements or there are prohibitions against owning freehold, but even foreigners can own leasehold land for a maximum of 99 years. So apart from that, the restrictions that we had in terms of ownership of businesses or property here were removed. One final caveat, if you're investing in a bank as an individual, if you're regulated in another jurisdiction, you'd be allowed to have 100%, but if you're an individual hoping to own a bank in Kenya, there are restrictions in that regard, so that there's only a maximum that you can own, I think it's 25%. But apart from that, if you are regulated elsewhere, as a foreign company, you can still own 100% a local bank. Thank you.
Thanks, Adam. For Ghana, there are a few. If we are looking to provide goods and services in the petroleum industry, you need a local partner. And then again, if you are looking to get a payment services license, a PSP license for a fintech business, for example, you also need a local partner. So there are a few.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. I know about the local content law, but I didn't know that we had extended it to the payment space. Thank you for the enlightenment. So there's another question. Are there funds set up for foreign investors who lose their investment as compensation where the loss is not attributable to the investors? Well, in Ghana, Ghana is a signatory to the World Bank's Multilateral Investment Guarantee Agency. That gives you some guarantee for losses that are not attributed to these are to non-commercial losses, and there are legal requirements, there are regulations against the misappropriation of funds, which also offers you some protection. And but I mean, let me ask the lawyers to share some maybe share some insights. So maybe we'll start again with Willem to address this question from the perspective of Mauritius, and then we move to the other lawyers also to address the situations in Kenya and Ghana as well. So Willem, I'll ask you to take this question again.
Sorry, I didn't understand the question. Can you just repeat it, please?
Are there funds set up for foreign investors who lose their investment as compensation, where the loss is not attributable to the investor?
Well, in Mauritius, there's very strong protection. So if you want to apply for a banking license and so on, you are very heavily regulated by the Bank of Mauritius. And so there are funds set up, but there's also the industries are very closely regulated. So you go through the normal insolvency system, but I'm not aware if there are any specific funds set up for that. What I do know is, the political stability is there, and I think the Bank of Mauritius, the FSC, and the EDB is there to protect the interest of investors. I'm not aware. I'm trying to think now if we recently had a court case where this has happened, but I'm not aware of many investors in Mauritius that has lost money because of businesses that failed in that regard. But I'm not sure if there's a fund for that. I'll have to check.
Okay. Mr. Onyango, are you on the line?
Yes, I am. So in Kenya, I talked about the Africa Trade Insurance Agency. So it insures against expropriation of assets if those are expropriated by a government, which would probably lead to a loss. That is insured. Currency inconvertibility. So if you are unable to convert a currency in a country that is a member, you could be compensated. Damage or operational issues due to war or civil disturbances, which could also lead to loss, you'll be compensated. Non-payment by a host government or a public institution also could lead to compensation. Unilateral cancellation of operating license or contract could lead to compensation. So yes, I think those to me are some of the examples, and there are others which I have not mentioned, but they're there, that would be covered for non-operational losses in answer to the question. Thank you.
Yes, for Ghana, Adam, the World Bank one is what comes to mind. Apart from that, I'm not sure there will be any specific regime covering that. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we can point to the success, for instance, of the Abengoa project, the Spanish company that built the Teishi water desalination project. I know that was under and they took advantage of the Multilateral Investment Guarantee Agency of the World Bank to secure that investment against non-commercial losses. So that's available. But I understand that this is for strategic projects and investments that are of beyond a certain threshold. But yes, there is some opportunity like that. Are there any more questions? I think that we did more than an hour over the time that we initially set for ourselves, but that is because what we set to do with this webinar was very ambitious, talking about an entire continent of 54 countries. So, ladies and gentlemen and distinguished guests, I'm honored to draw the curtains on this insightful and engaging webinar. I'm filled with a sense of gratitude, and I hope you are as inspired as I am to keep working towards mutually beneficial relationships between Africa and the world. Collectively, we've explored Africa's vast potential, its diverse opportunities, and the nuances of its regulatory landscape has been enlightening. We've also investigated who the African consumer is, and one of the key outcomes of this session for us will be to see new ventures spring out of these engagements or to enhance the success of already existing ventures. I extend my heartfelt thanks to our esteemed partners and speakers, the Temple Group, Triple OK Law, Trakwa & Co., Confidence, the Africa Continental Free Trade Area Secretariat. And I also want to thank our distinguished panelists and also the audience for staying with us through it. We have delved into the key issues. What we want to do going forward now is to keep working with you, collaborating with you, guiding you all the steps of the way to ensure that you achieve success and that you thrive in Africa. The World Trade Center Accra remains committed to this agenda. We'll be in touch with you all with our email contacts and the contact details of our speakers, and we are ready and willing to continue working with you to address your concerns. Thank you very much to everyone, and I wish you success for the rest of the day. Thank you.
Namibia is known for breathtaking landscapes, endless horizons, and abundant wildlife, hospitable people with cultures that fascinate, and a place where hope fuels dreams into reality. Yet, our charm is not our only lure. Namibia is a stable democracy with sophisticated financial systems, a world-class port, and excellent road, rail, air, and telecommunications infrastructure, making moving goods, travel, and trading with us seamless. With a plethora of solar and wind resources and recent notable discovery of oil and gas, Namibia is poised to become Africa's energy capital, set to fast-track our vision of an industrialized nation and a future of prosperity. Welcome to Namibia, the place of infinite possibilities.